First on our journey to find what makes a good tutorial level, we have DeadBolt. Published and developed by Hopo Games, the team behind Risk of Rain, a side-scrolling stealth action hybrid which has you taking command of a Reaper. Upon booting up the game, he plainly remarks, "Another night," before we take command inside a house filled with undead. Here, we have our first bit of learning to do, and the first piece of the tutorial comes into play, with the inputs clearly displayed on the wall. Testing A or D, we either move left and are prompted to open a door, or right and walk up the stairs with W. On the next level, we walk by a knife rack with 2 knives, prompting us to press E and pick up them one at a time. For keen eyes, this action teaches us 4 things. First, that any interaction will be displayed in the upper left corner. Second, for every input you perform, 1 action will be done, even if it's repeatable. Third, usable weapons are highlighted in red. And fourth, though they may not realize it yet, there are only 2 inventory slots. And here is where we reach our first enemy and choice: knives or fist. Dead simple. Throughout the first house, there are 4 undead, all of which are the base zombies, using a 9mm, or punks, according to the wiki. For anyone who expects a stab to yield 1 kill, they receive a nasty surprise and immediately become aware of the fast respawn time. For those who manage to spam right-click immediately, they'll also learn enemies stagger when taking damage. A little trial and error shows they can be rushed with a knife and be taken out in 5 stabs or 9 punches, but in the process, killing creates noise that alerts our prey, even if they are on different floors, if we don't use a silent approach, such as thrown weapons or a silenced gun. The punk on the can can easily be taken care of if we are patient and jump them as soon as they open the door. Heading up to the next floor, we have 2 options for dealing with the couch punk: rush and stab in the nick of time, or throw the knife as the wall suggests. Either way, he's dealt with. Moving downstairs, we see our first use of cover against us as another punk ducks behind a table to prevent us from immediately shooting him with our .32 revolver we just picked up from the table upstairs, unless we get a perfect headshot. Cover is a system I have stubbornly refused to use, so I can't fully comment on its usefulness, though I have heard it would have made a good amount of my runs easier. From there, the only other option is to move right. With the basics of combat established, we move out the door and to our next house. Approaching the larger house, we run into a bit of a wall, perhaps literally, as there isn't a door for us to access the interior. Looking around, we can find a sewer grate highlighted in yellow that we can slip into using our lighter to turn into smoke and learn the final piece of the movement puzzle: piping. From here, we have all the tools the game can give us, and it's our job to figure out how to use them. But we still only know that a hammer is useful for pounding in nails and throwing at undead. This time we learned how to pull out some more troublesome staples. After either shooting or stabbing the punk outside the toilet, the 2 downstairs have been alerted and hide behind the couch for cover, making a direct approach difficult at best. We can't think for too long, as they're heading towards the stairwell, and while we could use 2 bullets to watermelon them as we exit the stairs, we can do this in a cleaner fashion, and use the vent system to move to the room behind them, grab the 9mm, giving us 10 more bullets to play with, in case we miss with our revolver. On the ground floor, we have a new enemy type. The bully rushes us with a crowbar and bludgeons us to death, often being paired with a punk to lay suppressive fire when he gets in range. So once again, we open the toolbox and use one of the vents to get behind them. And with a little bit of patience and a ballistic dose of 9mm, we can exit the building and receive our score for the level, based on how little time is spent and the accuracy of our shots. We're also given souls on completion, this game's currency to buy weapons and expand our toolbox. This can lead to a fun game where we give ourselves a challenge of trying to beat our past record. After our mission stats are shown, we enter a house full of boxes, our home for the time being, and are greeted by a candle. One of the scouts for the flames Heading to the fireplace, we are given a briefing on our next mission by the Flames, our employer, as well as some info to work with and a hint. The undead are easier to kill when they're on their own. And from there, being given our toolbox, the whole game is laid out before us as our oyster. Beyond the wonderful design of the game, being fairly well detailed and enjoyable to look at, with undead and damned body parts being flung about in wonderfully animated gore, the soundtrack is some of the best I've heard from a game, with the closest thing I can think of describing it being synth jazz, composed by Chris Crisudlio, who composed the Risk of Rain soundtrack, also by Hopo Games. This whole time I've been writing the script, I've been listening to it in the background to get this out in a timely manner compared to some of my other projects, namely the New Vegas incident. Spread across the levels, you find more undead and their part of the world through cassette tapes, learning their stories. For a game with minimal story like this one, having lore that exists if you know where to look is a fun way to keep people coming back occasionally for more than just to beat their past record or attempting to get the death and famine achievements, finishing the game and beating it on hard in an hour respectively. Yes, I am talking about you there, Scotch. I'm sure you'll get it next try. As it has been a little bit since I wrote my base tutorial video, I have expanded on some of the points I briefly mentioned there in passing, so I'm gonna touch on them here real quick, and going forward, that's what I will be using to give a rough rating system going forward. Let's go over them since they're new and they should be touched on before future videos. 1. Controls. Do they tell you how to move, attack, and generally navigate the interfaces? 2. Atmosphere. From the tutorial, you should be able to get a general vibe of the game. Is it dark and brooding, light and full of possibilities, harsh and unforgiving, or any other feel that you might get from playing the game? This can be done through any number of means. The way NPCs talk to you and each other, lighting and music, actual design of characters and NPCs as well as environment, general things of that nature. You just need to be able to get the vibe of the game. 3. Story. As this is only the tutorial, the whole thing shouldn't be spelled out for you, dancing with nothing but a grape leaf for modesty, but it should be showing just enough angle to make you interested in the larger picture. Of course, this isn't really needed for games where the story isn't a major selling point, but for a game where that is, it is necessary, otherwise it might seem like you were just dropped into the actual story with nothing to go off of for your heading. 4. Quirks. These are little things that make your game stand out. Your item boxes in World 1.1, your bonfires, endless exploration and possibilities for Minecraft. Whatever system makes your game something unique and stand out from the competitors in the genre. 5. Length. This is just what it says on the tin. How long does it take to finish your tutorial on first and repeat runs, and how fast does it feel? If the tutorial is too long, it can keep people from coming back. In fact, the main reason I haven't returned to Red Dead 2 is just the fact that the journey to Horseshoe Overlook is so damn long. Looking over the 5 categories I set out, I feel the only area DeadBolt is lacking in would be story, and while that isn't necessarily a major issue for this game, it is still a part of the grading system, and while one shouldn't judge a fish on its ability to climb trees, I'm going to do it anyway. And based off of the arbitrary standard I made, DeadBolt gets a 4 out of 5 on this scale. Controls are shown very well, just being plastered on the walls, and the rest you will be able to figure out more naturally, just by experimentation. For atmosphere, again, this is done wonderfully well, with the music, moody lighting, and almost noir style, with long shadows from lights, and the oh-so-wonderful synth jazz oozing through your speakers. For story, as mentioned before, DeadBolt is a bit lacking. but it's a constant throughout the game, as you're mostly drifting between different jobs for the flame, and it's mostly an excuse to interact with the mechanics and further hone your skills of mowing down undead. For quirks, DeadBolt will quickly make you learn them if you want to have the best chance of survival. That being said, with all the tools in your toolbox, piping, cover, any of the other systems and bits and bobs, they're all laid out well, and you should have to interact with them on your first run through if you want to survive. For length, I had 2 friends and myself play through Dead Simple, the tutorial level, really quick, and see the general time it would take us to complete the first level, and it averaged out to 37 seconds. Though I will note, this was thrown off by Scotch's 23-second run, being almost a full 21 seconds faster than the other runs, really throwing off the average. So clearly, it is a very quick tutorial to get through, and will get you back into the flow of things without much hassle, but still being available to new players to spend as much time in as they need to start understanding things. Given the full layout, I believe DeadBolt receives a 4 out of 5 on my scale. All things considered, I believe this is a wonderful tutorial that does exactly what it says on the tin, being dead simple. Thanks for watching. Stuff down below, do with it as you see fit. What would you like to see next? I'm currently trying to figure that out myself, and your input would be greatly appreciated. So, until next time, I'm Sven, and I'll see you later. This is Elvin Prince, signing out.